A poor black boy steps onto the stage, his clothes worn but his eyes filled with quiet determination. He clutches the microphone like it's his last hope. He's not just singing to win, he's singing to save his sick mother's life. But what he doesn't know is that one of the judges, watching him closely, is the father he's never met. 12-year-old Malik had never known what it felt like to live without worry. From the time he was old enough to understand the weight in his mother's voice, life had been about survival. They lived in a cramped, run-down apartment on the south side of town. The ceiling leaked every time it rained, and the heater only worked when it wanted to. Malik never complained, though. His mother always said their hearts were warm, and that was enough. Malik's mother, Aliyah, worked 2 jobs, cleaning offices during the day and waiting tables at night. But even with all her effort, the bills were always waiting like wolves at the door. She tried to shield Malik from the worst of it, but he saw how thin she had gotten. He heard her coughing at night, the kind of cough that shook her whole body. When she started getting dizzy spells and losing weight rapidly, she told Malik it was just exhaustion. But he knew better. She was sick. Really sick. Doctors had diagnosed her with a chronic illness that needed immediate treatment. The kind of treatment that insurance wouldn't cover, especially for someone without a steady job or proper coverage. The prescriptions alone were hundreds of dollars. Malik listened quietly from the hallway when she argued with the pharmacy clerk over the phone, trying to negotiate a cheaper option. But there was no way around it. Either she got the medicine, or her condition would worsen. Malik was desperate to help, but he was just a kid. What could he do? He'd already been selling candy at school, running errands for neighbors, anything that could bring in a little extra cash. Still, it wasn't enough. And time was running out. The only thing Malik truly had was his voice. He had loved singing since he was little. His mother used to hum lullabies to him when she rocked him to sleep, and as he got older, he started mimicking melodies from the radio, gospel songs from church, and even classic soul his mom played on old CDs. People had always told him he had a voice that gave them chills. But Malik never took it seriously. It was just something that made him feel good, something that made his mother smile when she was too tired to do anything else. One afternoon, a flyer appeared on the bulletin board at his school. City Youth Talent Show, $5,000 grand prize. Malik's eyes froze on the number. $5,000. It felt like a fantasy. That was more than enough to cover his mom's medication, and maybe even help with rent for a few months. The show was sponsored by a local charity organization and open to anyone under 18. All talents were welcome. Singing, dancing, poetry, anything. Malik took the flyer home and showed it to his mother. She smiled, weakly, and tried to act excited, but she looked worried. She didn't want Malik to get his hopes up. Competitions like that drew in serious talent from all over the city. Kids with voice coaches, expensive instruments, and polished routines. Malik had none of that. But he had heart. And desperation. His mother didn't have the strength to stand in his way. If anything, she was proud he wanted to fight for her. She held the flyer in her hand like it was made of gold, then nodded. "If you're going to do it," she said, "you give it everything you've got." Malik knew there were obstacles. He didn't have a proper outfit. He didn't have a way to record an audition video for the first round, which was required. But when his teacher overheard him singing during lunch break one day, she offered to help. She let him stay after school to use the music room and helped him film a short video on her phone. It wasn't professional, but it captured his raw voice and emotion. 2 weeks later, he received the email. He'd made it to the live auditions. It was the first time in a long time that he saw his mother cry tears of joy. It gave him a sense of purpose, something to hold on to amid the chaos of hospital appointments, overdue bills, and growing fear. The talent show wasn't just a chance to win money. It was hope. It was his one shot to change everything. Malik didn't think about fame or the future. He thought about getting his mom the medicine she needed. He thought about seeing her smile again without pain behind her eyes. That was all the motivation he needed. He had no idea who the judges would be. He had no idea what would happen next. All he knew was that he would sing with everything inside him, because his voice was the only thing in this world that hadn't been taken from him yet. Malik knew that making it to the live auditions was only the beginning. The real challenge was still ahead. The competition would be held in front of hundreds of people at the city's cultural center, with a panel of celebrity judges and cameras capturing every moment. It was intimidating, but Malik reminded himself why he was doing it. This wasn't about fame or applause. It was about saving his mother's life. With no money for voice lessons or a vocal coach, Malik trained himself the only way he knew how. He watched videos online using the free Wi-Fi at the public library. He took notes on breathing techniques, posture, and vocal warm-ups. Every day after school, he practiced in the alley behind their apartment building, where the acoustics bounced off the brick walls just right. The sound wasn't perfect, but his voice filled the narrow space like it belonged there. His neighbors noticed. Some would sit out on their porches or lean out of windows just to listen. They didn't say much, but their nods and quiet claps gave Malik the courage to keep going. He didn't have fancy equipment or backup dancers. All he had was his voice, and the feeling deep inside that he was meant to do this. His mother's condition was getting worse. The coughs came more frequently, and she grew weaker by the day. Even though she tried to put on a brave face, Malik saw the fear in her eyes. She didn't have the energy to cook anymore. Sometimes she couldn't even get out of bed. Malik started doing more around the house, making meals, helping her with medications, managing what little money they had. It was a heavy burden for a 12-year-old, but he carried it without complaint. The night before the audition, Malik didn't sleep much. He spent hours choosing the right song, one that meant something, one that told his story. He picked a soul ballad his mother used to sing when she was happier and healthier. It was a song about holding on when the world lets go, about love that survives through the hardest storms. Malik felt every word in his chest. This was the song that had to reach people. This was the song that might save her. Meanwhile, across the city, preparations for the show were underway. The judges had been finalized. One of them was a last-minute replacement, Darius King, a Grammy-winning producer and recording artist known for launching major careers. He was charismatic, talented, and respected in the music industry. What most people didn't know, however, was that he carried regrets from a past he rarely spoke about. Years ago, in a different life, Darius had fallen in love with a woman he met while touring small venues. Her name was Aaliyah. Their time together was short but intense. Then, suddenly, Darius left town, chasing the next step in his career. He never looked back. He didn't know she had been pregnant. He didn't know he had a son. As fate would have it, Darius agreed to be a judge for this youth talent competition to give back to the community. He wanted to inspire young artists and maybe even discover a new star. He had no idea the most important discovery he'd make wouldn't be about music, it would be about family. Malik, of course, had never heard of Darius King. His mother never spoke of the man who left her behind. She never wanted Malik to feel abandoned, so she raised him with the belief that his father was simply gone, not worth mourning. Malik had long ago stopped asking questions. Life had enough problems without digging into old wounds. As the day of the audition approached, Malik felt the pressure build. He worried about forgetting his lyrics. He worried about messing up in front of a crowd. But more than anything, he worried about disappointing his mother. She had always believed in him, and now her hope was hanging by a thread. He couldn't let her down. His teacher checked in with him before the big day, offering encouragement and a ride to the venue. She even helped him put together a simple outfit, clean jeans, a button-down shirt, and a second-hand pair of shoes she bought herself. Malik didn't care about labels. He just wanted to look presentable and do his best. The night before the show, he sat by his mother's bedside, holding her hand. She smiled weakly and told him how proud she was, no matter what happened. Her voice was frail, but her eyes were filled with love. Malik soaked in every word like they were the last drops of water in a drought. Everything had led to this moment. All the pain, the practice, the fear, and the hope had built up to one opportunity. Malik wasn't just preparing for a performance. He was preparing to pour his heart out in front of strangers. What he didn't know was that one of those strangers shared his blood, and was about to recognize something powerful in the voice of a boy he'd never met. The auditorium buzzed with anticipation as the audience filled the rows. Families, teachers, and local residents had come to support the young performers. Backstage, nervous voices whispered final rehearsals, and hopeful eyes peeked through the curtain. This wasn't just a school recital. This was a platform that could change someone's life. Malik stood among the other contestants, clutching his number card. Around him were kids with custom outfits, vocal coaches adjusting earpieces, and parents snapping last-minute photos. Malik didn't have any of that. He came with nothing more than his voice, his heart, and a reason bigger than himself. He looked down at the small slip of paper in his pocket, a handwritten note from his mother. It said, "You are already a star. Just let them hear your light." When his name was called, Malik walked to the center of the stage. The lights overhead were blinding, but he kept his focus steady. The MC introduced him, and the room quieted. People expected a nervous child with shaky vocals. What they didn't expect was a voice so pure, so full of emotion, it would stop the crowd in its tracks. Malik began to sing with a trembling voice, but it quickly found its strength. The song he chose wasn't flashy or popular. It was soulful and raw. His voice carried stories of struggle, of nights spent hungry, of a mother's fading strength, and of a boy who had learned too early what pain felt like. Every word he sang came from a place deeper than most people ever reach. His voice wasn't just heard, it was felt. The audience froze. Conversations ceased. Even the judges, who had been scribbling notes and chatting through earlier performances, sat still. There was a weight in the air that made time feel slower. People leaned forward in their seats without realizing it. There was no background track, no harmonies, just one boy and his voice, echoing truth into the silence. Among the judges, one man listened differently. Darius King, the music producer known for spotting talent in an instant, felt something he couldn't explain. There was a familiarity in the boy's tone, a pain that mirrored something buried deep within himself. He watched closely, every note, every facial expression. It was more than talent. It was soul. It was personal. Malik reached the bridge of the song, and his voice cracked, not from lack of skill, but from raw emotion. He didn't try to hide it. He let the emotion come through, turning a technical flaw into a moment of breathtaking honesty. People in the crowd wiped their eyes. Some clasped their hands in front of their mouths. This wasn't just a performance, it was a cry for help, wrapped in music. When the final note faded into silence, the room didn't erupt right away. For a moment, it was completely still. Then the clapping began, slow, building, and then thunderous. People rose from their seats, applauding not just the song, but the bravery, the truth, and the heart behind it. It was a standing ovation born out of deep respect. The judges offered their scores, all of them near perfect. But one judge didn't write anything down. Darius King simply stared at the boy, trying to place the feeling in his chest. There was something haunting about the boy's eyes. Something he couldn't ignore. He leaned back in his chair and tried to shake the feeling, but it stayed. Malik walked off stage quietly, overwhelmed by the response. He didn't smile or celebrate. He had given everything he had in that moment. Whether he won or lost, he knew he had done what he came to do. His voice had reached people. He hoped it would be enough. Back at the judges' table, Darius flipped through the program to find the contestant's name. Malik Carter. A name he didn't recognize, but something about it stuck with him. Then he noticed the boy's age, 12. Darius did some mental math. 12 years ago, he had been in this same city for a short tour. He remembered the woman he had met, Aaliyah. The memories hit him like a wave he hadn't braced for. He excused himself from the table, suddenly unable to focus. The other judges praised Malik's performance, calling it the most powerful of the night. But Darius stayed quiet. He wasn't thinking about the music industry or the potential of a new star. He was thinking about the woman he left behind and the boy whose voice sounded like a mirror to his own past. Malik didn't know any of this. To him, it was just a night of singing and hoping. But without realizing it, he had sung his way into someone's memory, into someone's truth. And the man he had unknowingly moved to the edge of revelation wasn't just any judge. He was the father Malik had never known he had. After the performance, Malik sat quietly in the wings of the auditorium, waiting for the final results. He didn't expect anything. Just being heard had been enough for him. He thought of his mother, waiting back at home, probably lying on the couch in their tiny living room, hoping to hear good news. Malik had no idea that his voice had done far more than move a crowd. It had opened a door to a truth that had been buried for over a decade. Back at the judge's table, Darius King couldn't shake the feeling that had taken hold of him. It wasn't just the power of the performance. It was something deeper, something personal. Malik's voice carried a sound that echoed in Darius's bones. A tone, a pain, a resonance that felt too familiar. It stirred memories he had long ignored, a summer spent in a small city, a whirlwind romance with a woman named Aaliyah, and the message he never received when he left. Darius had left abruptly. He'd been young, ambitious, and chasing a dream. He hadn't said goodbye. He hadn't checked back. He had assumed she'd moved on, just like he had. But now, staring at the name Malik Carter on the judge's program, his mind began to piece together a truth he couldn't deny. Malik was 12. Aaliyah Carter was the name of the woman he had left. The math lined up. The eyes were too familiar. The voice too raw with the kind of pain only absence can plant. When the show ended and the winners were announced, Malik's name was called for first place. The crowd cheered, but Malik didn't jump for joy. He simply nodded, as if receiving a silent blessing from the universe. He accepted the trophy humbly, but the real prize was the envelope containing the winnings, enough to finally get his mother the treatment she needed. Malik had fought not for glory, but for survival. And now, that hope was real. Behind the scenes, Darius asked the show's organizers for contact details. He wasn't sure what he'd say or how he'd approach it. All he knew was that he couldn't walk away, not this time. The boy on that stage had awakened something he didn't know was missing. Darius had spent years mentoring strangers, helping young talent succeed. But this was different. If what he suspected was true, then he had just heard the voice of his son for the very first time. The producers hesitated at first, but eventually agreed to pass along a message. They understood something significant had happened on that stage, even if they didn't know the full story. Malik received the note the next morning, neatly folded and signed only with a first name. It requested a conversation. Malik was confused, but his mother, who had seen the performance online, turned pale as she read the name. She sat quietly for a long time before she finally spoke. For 12 years, Aaliyah had protected her son from the pain of abandonment. She never wanted Malik to grow up feeling unwanted or bitter. She told him his father was gone, yes, but not out of shame. It was to help him grow without resentment. But now, the truth had come home in the most unexpected way. Aaliyah admitted that Darius had never known about Malik. She never had the chance to tell him. She had written letters, but they were never answered. Perhaps they never reached him. Perhaps he had changed addresses, numbers, or simply moved on. She would never know. Malik listened in silence, absorbing a truth that shifted everything he thought he knew about himself. The man who sat on the judges' panel wasn't just impressed by his talent. He had seen something familiar because it was familiar. The reflection he saw on that stage was real. It was blood. It was family. Malik felt a flood of emotions, confusion, anger, curiosity, but also a strange peace. He hadn't been unwanted. He had just been unknown. A meeting was arranged a few days later, quiet and private. Darius didn't come with expectations. He came with questions, with apologies, with a heart full of regret and a hope for something new. He had built a career on discovering voices, but never imagined the most powerful one he'd find would belong to the child he never knew he had. What followed was not instant forgiveness or fairy tale endings. It was something more real: conversation, understanding, and slow rebuilding. Malik was cautious but willing to listen. Darius was patient, aware that he couldn't make up for years lost, but determined to be present for the years to come. Word of Malik's performance spread across social media, gaining attention not just for his voice, but for the story behind it. Offers came in, recording opportunities, interviews, scholarships. But Malik remained grounded. His first priority was his mother, who now had access to the care she needed. The second was understanding this new chapter of his life, one where he wasn't alone. What had started as a desperate attempt to save his mother had turned into a miracle neither of them could have predicted. A boy found his purpose. A mother saw her son rise. And a father, long lost, finally heard the voice of a truth he had missed for too long. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful real-life inspired stories. Got thoughts about Malik's journey or your own story to tell? Drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Because sometimes, the most incredible stories are the ones we never see coming. Until next time, stay inspired, and remember, every voice has a story. Every story deserves to be heard.